Hello, what's happening? And thanks for clicking on the video and joining us today in our third and final installment of Adolescence, Technology, and Parenting. In our last video, we got into some things that you can be doing as a parent to keep up with your children as they traverse this digital landscape, as well as some helpful tools that you should check out. You've probably heard the saying, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. I think this saying applies to our approach to parenting with our kids involving technology as well. I'm curious, if you were to take the amount of time you spent on what is going to be allowed or not allowed with your kids in technology, catching their fish, versus the amount of time and thought and conversation with your kids on how to use wisdom and discernment when engaging in technology, teaching them to fish, which would be getting the majority of the attention in your household? I think a potential way to modernize this proverb is tell your teen what technology is not allowed and you'll help them for a season, but teach your teen how to healthily engage in technology and they'll be wise consumers for a lifetime. Some think that this fishing proverb is out of the Bible, but it's not. However, there is a proverb that I think is very similar. Proverbs 22 and verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, he will not depart from it." Notice what this doesn't say. It does not say keep your children from doing what they shouldn't be doing. Instead, it says train up a child. There's a picture of modeling, of coaching and empowering in this proverb that is supposed to happen. With these proverbs in mind, I want to introduce you to the idea of restricting parenting versus preparative parenting, and I want to push you towards the latter style. Restrictive parenting is focused on three things: rules, control, and consequences. Now, hear me out on this. There is a definite place for these things when it comes to our children's technology consumption. There's a lot of junk and some really scary stuff out there. Pornography, cyberbullying, and sexting come to mind. We need to protect our kids from these things. Don't forget, we spent a large portion of our last session talking through parental controls and filters. But restrictive parenting is only part of our role, and I would argue that it is secondary to a more important role, and that's preparative parenting. Now, what is preparative parenting? Well, in this case, it's a phrase I'm making up that sounds similar to the phrase restrictive parenting. I'm a youth minister, it's what I do. But I do think there are some principles tied to the idea of training up a child in the way they should go that fit nicely with the idea of seeking to prepare them. At the core, I think preparative parenting focuses on the when and how questions. Restrictive parenting tends to focus on the what questions. What type of phone or device should we let our children have? What type of data plan and access should we allow? What apps, games, social media accounts will we or won't we allow? Now, these are all good questions, but I think there are some when and how questions that may lessen the heaviness of the what questions. Here are a few I would suggest considering. When will we allow our kids to have a fill in the blank? Whether it's a cell phone or smartphone, Xbox Live account, unrestricted Netflix access, social media account, or anything else. Now, at first glance, this seems like an age question, right? I get it all the time from both parents and teens. At what age should a child be able to have a fill in the blank? Parents are usually asking me from a spot where they're looking for guidance. Students are usually asking me from a spot of hoping I'll give them some ammunition to take back to their parents. In either case, a specific age is probably not going to be the cookie cutter answer. I think the correct answer has a lot more to do with displaying responsibility and awareness. First, there is responsibility to behave and engage healthily. Not sure what that looks like? Well, 1 Timothy 4:12 gives us a great checklist. Let's read there. 1 Timothy 4:12 reads, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity." Second, there is awareness to stay away from the danger spots. Do they have internal alarms that go off when they stumble upon something that's dangerous or inappropriate? Have they displayed the ability to say no or walk away from dangerous things? As Paul says in 2 Timothy 2, verse 22, "Flee the evil desires of youth." Now, I'm stepping into opinion land here, which means these are my thoughts, which could totally be wrong. However, I do not believe it's healthy to put a smartphone into the sole possession of a middle school student. Remember the knife illustration? The motive and heart of the user plays into whether it's used for good or evil. But age and awareness are important. Now, I'm not going to put a steak knife in the hands of my 1-year-old little girl. Her mind and her awareness are at a point where she can't comprehend the risk involved with handling the item I've placed in her hands. I just don't see a middle schooler being at a point where unlimited access to pretty much everything on the internet in the palm of their hand is something that they're ready for. No matter how many filters, passwords, and guards I put on the thing, there will always be a way around it. Okay, opinion done. Here's another when question. When will we step in, and when will we step back? This is most certainly a hotly contested topic. Once you allow your student to have whatever item or account we're talking about, what is the appropriate level of access for you to have? How much should you check up on them? We could easily spend an hour on this topic. However, I'll just encourage you to consider the following, which is a quote from a minister in northern Indiana. Shouldn't social media and cell phones be a privilege rather than a right or entitlement for kids from their parents? If parents own the internet service provider, the cell phone, the computer, etc., that it takes their kids to have that privilege of enjoying and using, then shouldn't parents have full authority to monitor and audit their kids' use? I don't know about you, but I really like that quote. One way you could set this up with your kids was to simply let them know that we are going to trust you, but we want there to be accountability. Therefore, we reserve the right to check whatever account or device you're using. Now, this doesn't mean that you're watching every little action, but you may check in on occasion. Now, let's look at a how question. How are we going to engage our technology? When it comes to preparative parenting, I think this is key. And here's the closest I'm going to get to giving you a step-by-step guide in this video. The following are 4 ways that we strive to engage cell phone use. I believe that these steps will translate well across all forms of technology. So, number 1, talk about it. I hope that there are a ton of questions being asked to help students think critically about how they're going to engage in technology. Here's just a few questions to get the discussion going. When is it better to talk in person rather than through a text? What information would you say we should never share on social media? What does the Bible have to say about what our speech should look like, and how does it apply to what we watch, listen to, or post? And what is the purpose of a selfie? The next thing we need to keep in mind is the idea that sometimes we just need to take a break from technology. Have no technology allowed times or unplugged times. This could be for short periods like at the dinner table or when we're going out as a family. Or it could be for longer periods of time, like on a family vacation, or do a week-long fast from your phones. The goal here is to remind them, and maybe even ourselves, that we don't need technology to survive. Here's another opinion moment. I love the parents who have a nightly shutdown moment with phones. If you haven't gone too far down the road yet, I would encourage you to set a time at night where all phones go into the possession of mom and dad, and a time in the morning where they go back into the kids' hands. Okay, opinion done. But here's another thought. After having some forced or required breaks, find ways where you can invite them to do it. Mom and dad are going to turn off their phone or Netflix, etc. during this time. And here's why. Explain why that you're doing that, why you're turning it off or taking a fast. And we're not going to force you to, but we wanted you to consider it. The next thing to keep in mind is to simply just put down the device. This one is pretty specific to mobile devices. Teach your children the importance of putting the phone down or into their pocket and engaging with what is right in front of them. Now, this isn't the same as fasting for a long amount of time. It's simply just don't have that device in your hand or on the table. Be present and be aware of what's going on and the people that are talking to you face to face. While the goal with taking breaks is to remind them that they don't need their technology, the goal here is to combat what is being known as screen addiction by challenging them to have it there, but to willingly not look at it. And finally, the thing we need to do the most is model healthy use. Remember, there are some incredibly awesome aspects about technology around us. It can be used to nurture faith, compassion, and community. Find ways these good things can happen, then use it that way as a family. Here's just one idea. Set up a group text on some app like iMessage or Facebook Messenger or GroupMe. There's tons of options out there. Among your family or even extended family. and designate that group message as a prayer and scripture stream. If you have a prayer request, check in. Send daily or nightly scriptures for reading. The only stuff that is allowed to be posted there are prayers for each other or Bible verses that have been especially meaningful. This can be a great way to encourage your family and your extended family. So that's a brief run through of some thoughts on preparative parenting. I do want to ask one more how question, however, but this one falls under another form of parenting that I think can be pretty significant in this journey as well. We'll call this one redemptive parenting. How will we respond when we catch our kids consuming technology in an unhealthy way? This could be a lot of things, like them going online when they're not supposed to, watching something that you've communicated was not allowed, or simply spending too much time on a given device. But I'm going to be very specific on this one. What happens if, and honestly, I'm probably more accurate to say when, you find out your child has engaged or is engaging in technology in a sexually immoral way? I'm talking about sexting and pornography. There's so much research and so many statistics that point to the pervasive nature in which pornography is being consumed by our children. Here are 2 stats to just drive that point home. Over 93% of boys and over 65% of girls have seen online pornography before the age of 18. The average age of a child's first exposure to pornography is 11 years old. So, if and when this happens in our home, what should we do? And how should we handle the situation? First, we need to recognize that there is secret shame that comes with the consumption of pornography. Maybe more than any other sin struggle, pornography thrives in secrecy and shame. As I work with students who are coming clean about pornography, I can literally see the shame and defeat in their body language. Think about it. Who in their right mind would find it easy or appealing to share this struggle with someone else, especially when it's mixed with a struggle like masturbation? The students I've talked to are convinced that they're the biggest weirdo or freak in the world, and if this struggle comes out, that they'll be ruined. This is why I think it's imperative that we catch the difference between shame and guilt when working through this topic. Shame is marked by the thought that I'm a bad person, whereas guilt is marked by the thought that I've done a bad thing. There is such a subtle difference between these definitions, but embracing the difference can be life-altering. When a student opens up about this struggle, I make a point to look at him or her in the eye and say, I know that wasn't easy to share, and I'm also proud of you for sharing it with me. I think you're an amazing person, and I don't look at you any differently. You know what the response usually is? A giant sigh of relief and a change in composure. Because Satan flourishes in shame and secrecy, and we're removing both of those things from the conversation. Now, we can move into conversations on where we go from there, but I firmly believe half of the battle is already won in breaking the silence and helping the student see that he or she made the right call by opening up about it and is loved. So, what should you do when you find out? Here's a simple reminder for any time you're interacting with a teenager. Freak out inwardly, but remain outwardly calm. I know that seems crazy, but as a youth minister with over a decade of youth ministry experience, I can point to any number of conversations that I've personally had with teenagers where I've had to combat this type of moment. Although it's a slightly humorous thought, this is hugely important. Remember, this is your opportunity to help move them out of secret shame and instead operate from guilt, moving forward into redemption. In Tim Chester's great book on combating pornography called Closing the Window, he walks through a 5-step process that can move us towards health. The first is adoration of God. I love that he starts here. It is in Christ's love and our love for him that needs to compel us in this battle. Otherwise, we're just trying behavior modification, and that won't get us very far. The next step is abhorrence of porn. We need to allow a hatred to build up towards this sin and the effect that it's having on us and the world. Next is assurance of grace. We have to trust the forgiveness in Christ's redemptive work of God to bring us out of our struggle. Fourth, avoidance of temptation. We need to identify where we are most susceptible to consuming pornographic material and get out of that situation. And finally, accountability to others. We have to surround ourselves and open up to those if and when we're being tempted or falling into temptation. As the parent, you can play coach and encourager through the first 3 steps with your child. You can speak these truths to them, but they have to own the truths for themselves. You can really step into action on the last two. Whenever it comes to the avoidance of temptation, a common story I reference is that of Aaron Ralston. You may know Aaron's story. It was the subject of the film 127 Hours. Aaron was a very accomplished rock climber, and one day when climbing through a canyon in southeastern Utah, a boulder came loose and lodged his arm against the canyon. There was no way for him to get loose. With no cell phone reception or anyone aware where he had gone to climb that morning, he ended up stuck in the canyon for 5 days and 7 hours. That's a whopping 127 hours trapped in that ravine, before he finally determined there was only one option for his survival. As Aaron says it, I came to a point where it was either my life or my arm. Now this is pretty graphic, but he yanked his arm sideways to completely snap the bones just below where it was lodged. He then took a small knife to cut his arm off. He made his way to a spot where he was able to receive medical attention and is still alive to this day. Crazy story, I know, but look at what Jesus says in Matthew. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 29 through 30, Jesus says, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell." Obviously, Jesus is using hyperbole here, but the principle is clear. The reality is that those who are dealing with pornography struggles are likely at or moving towards addiction levels that will trap him or her where it is nearly impossible to break free. If we're to avoid the temptations, it may involve cutting off some of the items that are in our lives in order to move towards health. You need to help your kids think through that. And you may need to be ready to make some sacrifices inside your home to accomplish that goal. Yet, as you seek to move toward these steps of accountability, remember to keep the redemptive road in mind. If you choose to go the route of removing internet from your kid or downgrading to a dumb phone, do so with less of a punishment in mind, but more out of a heart of avoidance of temptation. Remind them that there can be victory over sin. Put a timeline on how long you cut a form of technology out. And when that timeline is done, invite your son or daughter into the conversation about their readiness to bring it back into their life. Again, pornography is one very specific, yet very significant issue that may need to be addressed with your kids as they navigate the digital world. But it is a perfect example of the importance of having preparative, restrictive, and redemptive parenting in your arsenal. Preparative. Make sure your kids know this stuff. It is out there and it is incredibly damaging to our spiritual lives. Help them think through how they're going to navigate the web and how they will respond when temptations arise, because they will eventually arise. Restrictive. Have appropriate guidelines and controls in place to protect them from unsupervised and full access to the internet. And finally, redemptive. Have the uncomfortable conversations if and when you find out your kid is consuming pornography, and make the focus about grace and finding victory. Now, this is not easy stuff, but it's important. And you can do this. Remember, our goal is to help kids and become wise consumers. I hope these 3 sessions together have helped get a framework and purpose for engaging this world of technology with your kids. Now, I want to give you something very practical to work on. I actually released it with our first video. Together as parents and ultimately with your family, you can work together on the Digital Engagement Family Notebook. It's a tool to help you process through how your family is going to handle technology. You'll primarily work through the workbook or the guide first, but then there are moments inside where you will be able to have discussions with your kids and give them the opportunity to speak into the standards and boundaries that you're going to work toward together. Let me briefly walk through each section that can be found in the guide. In pages 3 to 4, you'll see the digital inventory. In this section, you'll take inventory of the primary technological devices each of your kids has access to. Then assess their amount of usage on each device. This is a parents only section to work on. Next, on page 5, you'll see inventory discussion. In this section, you'll work through the first 3 questions as parents, separate from your kids. Then you'll bring what you've worked through to your kids and talk through the discussion prompts that are in the gray shaded box. The next part is found on pages 6 through 7. It's the social media and connections evaluation. Now this is similar to the digital inventory, except this time you're going to identify each social media or interactive platform each of your kids have access to. A basic rule of thumb is, if they have a username and password to access it, include it. Then you'll assess how active they are on each platform, as well as your level of awareness on what their specific activity is on that platform. Meaning, do you know where they're going, who they're connected with, and what they're saying? Again, this is a parents only section to work on. Finally, the social media and connections discussion. Similar to the inventory discussion, work through the first 3 questions as parents separate from your kids, and then discuss the gray box with the whole family. Next is the digital code of conduct, found on pages 9 through 10. Using the 4 ways to engage technology, you will, again, just parents, evaluate what's going well and where to improve your digital engagement. Again, at the bottom of page 10, there are some family discussion prompts in the gray box. And then finally, the rules and boundaries, found on pages 11 and 12. This section gives you, just parents, some questions to work through that will set up some guidelines for your family and hopefully serve as a preparative and restrictive in their nature for your children. Then at the bottom of page 12, there are some suggestions for how to take these rules and boundaries to your kids and let them be a part of the process. Please take this tool and make it work for you. I would suggest working through the digital inventory and social media connection sections together as parents, and then go to the family discussion for those 2. After that, work code of conduct and rules and boundaries just as parents, then move to discuss them as a family. Thanks again for joining us in this 3-part video series on adolescence, technology, and parenting. This series is by no means exhaustive or perfect, but I hope that it's provided to be an ample tool and discussion starter for you and your spouse, as well as your children, involving technology and how we use it. We need to be wise Christian consumers of technology and understand that technology isn't good or bad. It's all in how we use it. Just like that knife illustration. Remember, be more like Christ each and every day. Know that I'm praying for you and your family. Know that I miss you, and know that I hope you have an awesome day.